YouTube Ozzico and the Goat House is back. Today I'm going over my NFC quarterback tiers for the upcoming 2023 season. Very recently did the AFC quarterback tiers, and of course this isn't based off last year alone, which some people like to do. I do not agree with doing that. We're kind of moving on past, from one season, basing things off one season here. So a bunch of draft videos on the channel, undrafted free agency, winners, losers of the draft grades, rankings, and more. Schedule releases tonight. We'll be making some videos very soon on that. We'll predict every week one game at this way too early stage. That'll be a lot of fun. Follow us on Twitter. Make sure you like, subscribe to notifications on here. Check out our sponsors, Liquid IV, GLD Shop, code GOAT on both those sites. Links pinned in the comments for anything you're looking for. Tier 1 for the NFC, I didn't put anybody there. I know it's already going to be a whole thing about that probably in the comment section here, but I had Mahomes and Burrow. I'm getting ripped for Burrow being in Tier 1. People seem to think Tier 1 is Mahomes tier, like the criteria is Mahomes. It's really not the case. It's Tier 1. It's top tier. Mahomes is the best, but I think somebody else, Joe Burrow, is very top tier. Hurts last year, we'll talk about Hurts in a second. He played like Tier 1 based off last year alone, but then we can go ahead and show Tier 2. I only have one guy in Tier 2, and that's Jalen Hurts, but he's a tricky one to rank because last year he played like a Tier 1 guy. Is he going to? That's one of those systems where it was really tricky to game plan for and defend, so more time, more tape, more film out. Is it going to get easier or harder for Hurts? Because he is improving at the same time. So that's a tricky part there. They did lose their offense coordinator. I feel more comfortable putting him in Tier 2. If he plays like last year or even takes a step up, of course, Tier 1, if he continues to stay consistent, and he can prove that to us. If he, drops off a little bit, or if last year, it's kind of teams are able to game plan for it, his style a little bit more. Maybe, some of these quarterbacks that run, we see them run less and less over years because they want to stay durable, of course, losing Steichen. So there's a chance that by the end of the year, he's lower than Tier 2. But I'm staying optimistic here. I'm confident they kind of continue playing pretty well. Because I think it's kind of going to offset each other a little bit. Like teams will start the game plan better. This is what happens. And maybe he won't run. Maybe this year he'll run as much. Maybe not next year. But at the same time, he's improving because he's still just getting better. The improvement from 2 years ago to last year was ridiculous. So that kind of like offsets each other a little bit. So I feel comfortable with him. The NFC quarterback's not as elite as the AFC quarterbacks. I feel comfortable with him and by himself, so that's pretty good for him in Tier 2. Tier 3, I have Dak Prescott easily in Tier 3. There was no discussion with myself about putting him in Tier 4. I like him in Tier 3. He's got to hold off on some of those interceptions that he threw last year, and they had that Niners game, and it was a couple bad interceptions, but I still think Dak's a solid quarterback. I don't see why why can't he play? If we're basing things off last year, you could even argue him Tier 3. But why does he have to play that same way as last year? Why does he have to throw as many interceptions? I think some people were talking like it's going to be the same thing. I don't really think so. I think he'll play a little bit better, and I feel comfortable with him in Tier 3. And if he's not Tier 3, you're telling me, you can see the future. He's either Tier 2 or Tier 4. I would guess 2. I would very easily guess 2. So, and I put Kirk Cousins in Tier 3. He's been consistent. And, of course, he's got to win those big games. The big games, prime time, but mainly in the playoffs. But other than that, he's won. He's won games. So he's just consistent all around. He's able to air the ball out. We see under Kevin O'Connell that they're more of a pass-first team rather than a run-first team that we're used to. And he was still very solid first year with that coach. So, he's one. Could they start the game plan for O'Connell's offense? And teams could, but Cousins has been so consistent that you don't really see like a drop off or anything. He's just not a great quarterback, but we know what he's going to be. I think people get on Cousins a little too much. The primetime thing's kind of funny, but maybe he deserves it. I'm a Vikings fan. I almost think it's a Vikings thing, the primetime, because it's just kind of, it's been a Cousins thing too, but it seems like it's been a Vikings thing for a long time. If you've watched the Vikings for that long, And then Stafford, Dak and Cousins were like easy for me at Tier 3, like no question. Stafford's tricky because when Stafford is healthy, he's probably Tier 2. He's probably up there with Hurts when he's healthy. When we saw him play like the Super Bowl year before that, even maybe he wasn't winning a whole lot of games, but when he was healthy, probably Tier 2. Bottom line, Tier 3. Now he's not really healthy. How is he going to be? Coming off the injury. He's so tough. Like, I almost put him in tier 4 because of that, but he's still Matt Stafford. Like, if this guy's on the field, he's good. Like, he's different than a guy like Kirk Cousins, because Cousins is more consistent, a little more careful with the ball, but Stafford has more of that wild potential. So it was very difficult, like with that comparison, kind of having him a tier under him, even though it's not a Cousins tier or it's not a Dak tier, it's tier 3. So Stafford's very tricky. There's a lot of tricky NFC quarterbacks. I left him in tier 3. You hate to say it, you absolutely hate to say it, but can we fully trust him to stay healthy this year? So we'll see. This is kind of it there. And then tier 4, yeah, some of these guys close to tier 3. Kyler Murray. And keep in mind that he's injured right now, and we're probably not going to see him for a little bit of the season. And is there a chance that they kind of just end up shutting him down for the whole season? I would say no, but maybe. But 2 years ago, he was pretty good. Like the first half of the year when the Cardinals were rolling, he looked like an MVP type player. But then they got figured out. You know, the game plan came out, and the film had more and more film. We see it all the time, and it just wasn't the same. And he's been a little underwhelming. You know, making some stupid decisions, obviously, and you know, sure, Kingsbury didn't help, offensive line didn't help, but Kingsbury's system fit Murray. Murray fit that system, but. So he's been underwhelming. He's been injured. He still is injured. So he's a little of a tricky one. I do think he's been a little overhyped, even though the talent is there. Derek Carr's a tricky one too. I mean, I'm so close to putting him tier 3 as well. You know, because you could compare to like Kirk Cousins. He's somewhat similar there. He did have a pretty bad year last year. So then you kind of go back and was it? You know, is he more of like a system guy? Like, was he more of like that system type guy? He needs specific systems. And I'm confident he'll work with the Saints there. But I felt a little more comfortable with him in tier 4. Yeah, him under pressure, him a little inconsistent. I guess he was consistent before last year. So you don't want to, you know, if you base it off last year, then, you know, that would be wrong as well. Maybe he would be lower. He's like high-end tier 4, you know. Based off last year, yeah, maybe high on tier 5, probably. So he'll play better this year with the Saints. Tough to squeeze him in with Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, and a healthy Matt Stafford. Then Geno Smith played phenomenal last year. I don't want to base everything off last year, but it matters. That sample size matters. What he showed us, for all these guys, it does kind of matter. Kind of sticks in our minds a little bit. And he played fantastic. You know, down the stretch of the regular season, yeah, teams were figuring out how to like. There were a bit more, not really pressure. I get more specific and say blitz properly against Geno Smith, and I thought that threw him off. Got him a little flustered sometimes, so that kind of made a little more sense. But then I thought in the playoff game, maybe he didn't do enough, but he had some moments, stepping up in the pocket and slinging it. You know, end of the first half. I know it's just small, very small sample size, but I was impressed. Overall, I was impressed with Geno Smith last year. So last year he played like a tier 3 guy. But that was a whole new thing, you know, away from Russell Wilson. They have Geno Smith in there. You know, so maybe more of a game plan is out there, you know, so it's a little bit tough. And Jared Goff's in the same boat. Because before last year, you know, this time last year, like we're recording videos about quarterbacks this time last year, everybody's ripping Goff. Maybe he gets ripped more than almost anybody. Like he's bad, like what a disappointment. You know, that's kind of how it was. And then and he had a really good year last year. I think he was kind of in the same boat as I thought Geno was better. I thought Geno was better, but I still would put Goff high end 4, low end, maybe low end tier 3, but possibly high end tier 4 based off last year alone. But yeah, Ben Johnson his first year, and he was great as an offense coordinator. But again, we got a year through. You know, more of a game plan is going to come out. So I think it's not fair to expect what Goff did last year, expect that from him. But he could do that again. He could do it again. I don't think he's going to go back to playing bad. I think we kind of got to. I think there's probably people that think he's going to go back to playing bad. There's probably a lot of people that think he's going to play just as good or better. Maybe we can split the difference a little bit more so towards the positive side because they got a good thing going in there in Detroit. But I do think it's unfair to put those expectations on Jared Goff because he still is Jared Goff. But I felt these guys fit in tier 4, but they all 4 have the capabilities of being tier 3. You know, they're probably not going to be tier 5. I mean, if Geno goes back to Geno and Goff, and Goff was better, like last year, Goff was definitely better, even though he struggled. And Geno wasn't really getting on the field. But if they go back to kind of playing where they were or close to, they're not going to be as high as tier 4. So you see kind of rangy, like tier 3 to tier 5 range possibly for those guys, where the guys in tier 3, you kind of, Stafford's tricky because the health, but those guys, mainly the top 2 in tier 3, like you're pretty firm on where they're going to be. It's a little more consistent. And then tier 5, I have a lot of guys. There's probably going to be some debates about some of the guys I have in here. Again, I don't base things off one season. I project a little bit, but there's also a kind of a confidence thing, like what they've shown me over multiple years to where I could trust them and, where I put them in the tier for the upcoming season. Brock Purdy's very tricky because he looked great in the small sample size, and it'd probably be better than tier, maybe great's a little too much, but maybe it would be in tier 4 based off that. He did have a weird injury that definitely could affect him, and he is going to miss some time. Is he going to get his job back? I guess I could have ranked Sam Darnold because there's some talk that he could play as well. I would put Sam Darnold in tier 6 if I did though. I just thought of that is he going to play? But I feel like, and we'll get to Lance, but yeah, Purdy, so it's a little tricky. I feel comfortable putting him here for now, but based on play last year, he could be 4. Daniel Jones, similar boat. I mean, somewhat, not because of the injury, obviously because he doesn't have an injury, but maybe he played more like a tier 4 last year. I mean, he got the job done. He got the job done. He hit open receivers. He used his legs. That's where he was impressive. He wasn't overly wow besides his legs, and maybe not a whole lot then compared to the next guy we're going to talk about in terms of on the ground. But yeah, it's still fully hard to trust Daniel Jones. Yes, he was better last year. This is a big year for him because he's on that contract now. And then teams will start to adjust based on his play and that new system that was new last year. So, I did think, again, impressed with the step up. I can see him being in tier 4. Because I watch a lot of football. Based on I saw little pieces here and there. I thought him in that offense was a little fortunate at times. Not in the playoff game though. I thought that the offense did their job in that game. I do think the game plan made it simplified, which is okay for them. But there was games throughout the year where I thought Jones was a little fortunate. That wasn't picked off or that was called back, and kind of had things go their way a little bit. So how will he be in the next year? It's a good team. He stepped up last year. How would he be? And Justin Fields is extremely tricky as well because his legs, his game on the ground, like that alone says way better than tier 5 because it's just insane, like super good. But there's a lot more to that than, the quarterback than just on the ground. And it'll be one thing, Lamar Jackson did on the ground, but Lamar Jackson did it through the air as well. But the main thing, Lamar Jackson won big-time games. And not only won games, won big-time games. And, of course, Bears' roster was terrible, so we're not – that's besides the point. But that's the thing. So Fields needs to step up as a passer. But at the same time – and win games, which we'll get to. But at the same time, that's why Fields has the ability to be – like, to me, he's not going to be tier 4. He's not going to be tier 4. I was about to say 3 either. He's either going to be tier 5 or 6 or 2 or 3. Or you can say 2. He's going to be 2 or 5 or 2 and 6. That's where Fields is at because he has the traits. He has the traits to be a passer. He has the arm strength, the velocity on the ball, which kind of goes into that. He's accurate enough. He could be a little more accurate on some layup throws. He's got the big playability. We know he has the legs. We know he has the build. It's just kind of up here. It's about processing. And sometimes that stuff doesn't change. But if he has better receivers, better O-line, that could definitely help it change a little bit. So he's a big one to watch this year because if he can fix kind of the processing speed and getting rid of the ball and not leaving. Sometimes he had to leave pockets. He had to, but sometimes he didn't have to, and he did too early. So if he can be more of a, because right now he's a run-first guy, and it seemed like he wanted to be people will debate that, but he seemed like, based on what I watched, he kind of almost, he doesn't want to be, but based on his play, like what his legs were doing, he kind of wanted to be, but if that makes sense. But he needs to be more of a pass-first guy, and it's about the processing. It's about just being smart, in the pocket. So big year for him this year. So he has potential to be a lot higher. It's just going to be, it's somewhat of a hump. It's one thing. And if he gets over that hump, which is tricky to get over, he's going to be special. He's going to be very special. So that is one of the trickiest guys on here. And then Bryce Young, I'll rank rookies because they're going to play this year. Some people make their tiers and they instantly put the rookies at the bottom. I talked about this in the AFC tiers. Why rank them at all? If it's not based on this upcoming year you're not predicting, you shouldn't even include them. So I think it's a little lazy. So I had CJ Stroud in the AFC one as tier 5 as well. I think Bryce Young will play pretty well if he stays healthy, which I would expect him to. I mean, he could even play better than this. Like, same with Stroud. Like, I could have put him in tier 4. There would have been absolute meltdowns in the comment section. And I put Trey Lance in here. These next two might be very surprising. I threw Trey Lance in here because why not? Why if Trey Lance plays, if he has to start early on, why can't he do what Purdy did? I think, he would be maybe a little less accurate because he's a little wild. He has a stronger arm, but he would have bigger playability, especially downfield with his legs as well. So, like, why can't he do what Purdy? Why can't he do what Justin Fields did? Higher ranked prospect for maybe most teams. I guess that's speculating, but he was taken earlier. Same draft class, similar skill set. Why can't he be on that level? Very, very small sample size we have to go off of. I don't think we can judge him off that. So, and he could keep his job as well if he starts week 1. It could be Darnold, I guess, as well. I would think not. And then Jordan Love, I actually had him in tier 6 right away, and I bumped him up to tier 5 because why not? Like, he's on a good team. I know the receivers need to be better over there, but they got some tight ends. They drafted Reed as receiver as well. They got some young receivers, but they got a good running game. They're going to run to open up the pass. They're going to run first, which they need. The Packers would actually, even though they had Aaron Rodgers, if they would have been a run-first team and focused on that last year, they would have won more games, and they would have been in the playoffs. So they're going to be a run-first team. It's going to open things up for him. He's got a strong arm. I know it takes more than that. He looked good in the small sample size we saw last year. The one start he had 2 years ago against the Chiefs, people were judging him off that. It just blitzed the shit out of him. It's not going to happen every week. He's going to have more preparation for all this stuff. And he's got a chance to sit and really learn from one of the greatest of all time in what I think is a pretty good staff as well. So why not? Why can't Jordan Love be at least this high? So I got 6 guys in here. And then the mistake people make, they're making when looking at these for me, I saw on Twitter because I posted them on Twitter as well, is I'm saying these guys are all the same. Like, they're the same exact talent. That's really not what it is. Like, you can rank these guys, and we'll eventually do rankings, but they can still feel tier 5 to me. Like, of course, Daniel Jones is, to me right now, right this second, is better than Jordan Love. Love could be better than him. He could be, but it doesn't mean they cannot be on the same tier. But Jones, I was close to putting in tier 4. And then tier 6, which I could throw Sam Darnold in here as well. If he gets a chance to start, he'll be better than what he's played, because he'd be on the 49ers, but still. Sam Howell I liked at North Carolina a lot. I liked him as a prospect. He looked pretty good in the small sample size we saw last year. It's still, a new system, and maybe that could work to their advantage, but a new system and everything. And, it could be a little tougher, but they got a decent team over there, but I feel more comfortable putting him in tier 6. I don't know if he's quite on the, and you could compare. I almost put Love down here, but Love got the chance to get more experience, sit and learn, and a little more confident with the Packers maybe, but the talent is there with the Commanders. Then Ritter as well. He looked all right when he played, and they got more talent around him. I'm just not expecting full consistency. I just felt more comfortable down here. And then Baker kind of has his flashes as well. And he's got a good team in the Bucs, except the offensive line's a little rough, I guess. But again, 3 guys that they're not too far off. And then Sam Darnold as well, you throw in here. They're not too far off from some of the guys we just talked about. But this is where I felt comfortable putting them in my NFC tiers. And again, we just did the AFC in a separate video. Well, eventually, I always rank for the upcoming season. I rank every players by each position group. Always a lot of fun. So we'll eventually do that. Schedule release right around the corner. So to recap my NFC quarterback tiers, this is mainly for like a TikTok / YouTube Shorts upload. So my 2023 NFC quarterback tiers, I popped myself up twice. We're going to try it again. My 2023 NFC quarterback tiers, starting at the top, I got nobody in tier 1. AFC, we had 2 guys, but didn't feel like anyone was quite there. Hurts could be there with another season like last year. Tier 2, I have Jalen Hurts by himself there. So see how he is, see if he can have another season like that. I'm optimistic with him continuing to playing well. Tier 3, I have Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, Matthew Stafford. Stafford, the tricky one because of health. Tier 4, Kyler Murray, health, and he's been a little underwhelming. Derek Carr switching teams. Geno Smith and Jared Goff kind of in the same boat. One really, really good season. Goff had another good season like some time ago, but where will they be at this year? Tier 5, a lot of guys Brock Purdy, Daniel Jones, Justin Fields, Bryce Young, Trey Lance, Jordan Love. A lot of upside from this group. A lot of upside. Some of these guys, like including a guy like Justin Fields, has a chance to jump up, like skip tiers and jump up. And then tier 6, Sam Howell, Desmond Ridder, and Baker Mayfield. I'd throw Sam Darnold in here if he gets to start as well, but could be better with the 49ers. So that wraps it up for my NFC quarterback tiers. We do have the AFC one up as well. Check that out. And we have a bunch of draft videos. We'll have some schedule type videos predicting week 1, all kinds of stuff here. So like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Check us out on Twitter. That's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.